Good afternoon, everyone. Our world has just reached peak grain production. The amount of demand now outstrips what we can produce on this planet. Look at the USDA February 2019 world wheat supply and demand. We should be producing more grain every year, but we're not. World production mostly lower. The only increase is in Canada, Argentina, and the exports are something different. Russia pulling back on its exports due to they understand the grand solar minimum. They're not going to be exporting much anymore. The rollover comes in a few more months. The only exporters that are in the positive territory, US, Argentina, and Canada. Everything else down. Look at Australia, minus 20%. And when you look at these numbers out of here, it's literally down 10 times. They used to export 21 million tons of grain. Now they're only exporting 2 million tons due to excessive drought that's expected to continue for 6 more years. China's in the same situation. They're losing production in Heilongjiang and different areas for wheat production down. They are scrambling for rice, wheat, and corn at the moment globally. Kansas winter wheat doing well. Wet month. Yeah, we saw this last year. Wet month, cold, delayed planting. And it all boils down to you are absolutely going to need to grow some of your own food. Here are some high-protein vegetables, easy to grow. Green peas, collard greens, spinach, sweet potatoes, which at the same time they grow, you can eat the leaves. And I don't care where you buy these seeds. Spring is coming up. You need to practice growing food right now. I trust TrueLeafMarket.com. That's why I'm bringing you their supply of seeds. Go anywhere, buy seeds anywhere. You need to practice. And during these uncertain times, I've teamed up with my Patriot Supply long-term food storage. A nice, affordable starter kit, 2-week food supply, 1,500 calories per day, breakfast, lunch, and dinners, plus the 4-gallon storage containers included in that. This is a good first step in getting more self-sufficient. And if you click through the Prepare with Adapt 2030 page in My Patriot Supply, you can get this starter kit for $75. Please remember there's a limit of 2 per household in this special offer. And as had been predicted during the grand solar minimum intensification, we would roll over to the point where the amount of global grain production was not going to meet the demand. But in the first few years, the carryover stocks, the ending stocks, which is on the right at 268 million tons, was going to be enough to feed in every year for these 12 million metric tons for this year, as an example, that need to be pulled out of that ending stocks to meet the demand. But what happens next year when there's even less global production and we need to pull out 20 million tons, 30 million tons out of the ending stocks? At what point do we roll over where there's literally not enough to feed the planet? That is coming within years from now. Not decades, not centuries, 2022, 2023. So looking at the world production and use, even with all of our GMO seeds and all the advances in agriculture and production, yield, output increases, still we cannot grow enough. Even after the 6th year, why are we declining now? We should have increased in production. Wide that out a little bit easier here. So what do you expect next year? If these losses are continuing, they're going to amplify as our weather patterns amplify. Across the planet, every headline you read now is an extreme, unprecedented, never seen before, multi-century flood, wind event, hail event, snow event. And it's going to get worse. It's going to continue to amplify to where we get these once in a 400-year storms, every single storm. As we move out here, this is the forecast for the decline in solar activity that's matching with the extreme weather across our planet increasing. Now, as the extreme weather increases, our crops are going to decrease. It's an inverse relationship. We are only in 2019, right where that green center box begins. The worst of the weather is not even expected until 2021 or 2022. So we still have 2 to 3 years of more extremes before the atmosphere may balance in some shape or form on a 400-year cycle in the sun. All the extremes you're seeing are tied to solar activity declines. And you have to read between the lines here too. Wheat is one thing, but global grains as a total is an entirely different thing. Coarse grains need to be added in, but then the rate in the first paragraph They say world wheat is going to increase 1.3 billion tons, but that makes no sense because what they're just showing you across other venues are saying declines in world wheat production. So now we have diametric opposite information being reported in the news. China, as always, every grand solar minimum heavily affected. They're already decreasing in production at least 1 million tons just for wheat this year. But the global coarse grain production is down 1.5 million tons. So even if you add the 1.3 million for the rosy forecast of wheat increases, we're still getting the 1.5 million ton decline. So there's still a net decline. And it shouldn't be happening if we have the best tech ever to grow with the most automated systems to grow global grains. But it's just not. Mother Nature's taking over and we are going to take a back seat. World production mostly lower, increases in Canada and Argentina and the United States. I cannot believe they say that it's going to increase 1% because last year's figures were down. How are they going to make up that loss from last year? And then the weather's going to be worse. The ground's colder now. It's wetter. So moving forward into the major exporters, this is where we play this shell game. So the major exporters that do have percentage changes on the increase would be the United States, Argentina, and Canada. I circled those in orange there. Everything else is a negative. Australia down 20%, but that's just last year. They're not counting from the 4 years prior, which I'll show you in just a second. But the EU down, Russia down 15% and expected to halt exports even further. Ukraine down, Kazakhstan down. So the major buyers for all these wheat tenders out there, where are they going to shift to and which place will they shift when they can't get it from their traditional sources? So case in point, here's Russia. They understand the grand solar minimums here. They're pulling back on their exports. Plus their production this year was down incredibly from last year. So the rollover point where the Russian exports decreased from even last year's levels in about 2.5 months. And that red line is going to continue to roll over in a bell curve fashion. They're going to pull back their exports, so the traditional Russian wheat buyers, where are they going to go to find extra wheat? So if we take a look at exporters over time, this is off Agri Consensus. We have all the major exporters here: Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, EU, Russia, US, and Ukraine. Now I put the arrow in there to show you what happened to the Australian exports. It almost disappeared entirely. So you can see the amount of total exports over time has actually decreased, especially from 2017 with 437 million metric tons down to 393 million metric tons. And they're predicting even further decreases in 2019 already forecast out, going to be under 300 million tons. So where is all this extra food going to come from? Oh yeah, the carryover stocks. They're going to dig in right now to fulfill the demand. Year on year, they're just going to keep digging in. And at what point does that run out? And that year that it runs out, we are going to have some serious political problems on this planet. Forget everything that you see with all this smoke and mirrors of tattletale, finger pointing, very nice politics going on. We're going to see street riots. And we're going to see military out to control the citizens. That's what's coming when they run out of the carryover stock. Now taking a look also, Agri-Census, specific Australia here that I tagged in, 21 million metric tons, 2017. What happened? Oh, there's a massive drought there. Every grand solar minimum, they get about a 7 to 9 year drought in the major wheat growing belt, South Australia, West Australia, 10 times the decrease in exports. So what's going to happen when this drought intensifies over the next couple of years? That could very well go to almost zero, and Australia will become a net importer of wheat. And then where are they going to get? Because traditionally, China was depending on their exports. So where's China going to fill that extra demand of, let's say, even 10 million metric tons? It's got to come from somewhere else. And off the credit report, now Asian millers are turning to Argentina for wheat because of the Australian drought. Well, everybody else is turning everywhere else to look for supply because it's just not there anymore. Russia, Australia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan. And then China, as always, going to be looking for more food. $30 billion trade deal with the U.S., only about food. An additional $30 billion in agricultural products. So taking a look at China, I simply overlaid the collapse of these Chinese dynasties with the GISP ICE Core data set. So where you see the colored lines, at the bottom of some of these cooling events were the collapse of the dynasties. Now, these collapses of dynasties run between 350 and 400 years. There's not been one that survived longer than 400 years. I encourage you to do the research to try to disprove that point. They do not last. They are on the same cycle as the sun's increases in activity and decreases into the grand solar minimums. Grand solar minimums, the dynasties collapse because they cannot feed their people. The intertropical convergent zone shifts, so does the moisture, so does the food production downward. So knowing that is in the future of China, so easily discernible and so visible in the crystal ball just based on the past, you would start to look for Chinese decreases already, especially in the wheat growing belts around Heilongjiang and that border area with North Korea. And here we are, grain and feed report update. Down, 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 down. Grain, rice, wheat, corn down. Now wait, I thought they were supposed to be increasing. In my own personal opinion, you can agree or disagree, Chinese numbers are not reliable. Even what they have given out that the USDA might recalculate in their analysis, on the ground, China does not want to lose face. They're going to make up numbers like they did with all the economic reports that you've seen coming out. They are nowhere near 6% growth. They're negative, and I can see the same exact thing happening with their grain report. So China's wheat production estimates by major sources, these are different companies that are analyzing what the Chinese production should be for this year. Down, down, down. Not even one single firm or government institution out there looks for any increases in China. So as they decrease in their production levels, they're going to be looking for exports elsewhere. And I already showed you exports are down everywhere. But here's the caveat. The wild card is the domestic consumption continues to increase in China. Animal feed and human consumption. One of those has to break and bend. Oh, I wonder why the pig virus is so sweeping the country. You could reduce demand from the pigs and the swine industry just by taking out that one single animal. And lo and behold, rice market, China approves 32 U.S. facilities as new suppliers. It's all about the food. It is all about the food. Every political maneuver you see out there right now is a smoke and mirror to cover for the chessboard accumulation of foodstuffs for the citizens. And as Bob Marley said it best, hungry mobs are angry mobs. We're going to get a real good gauge within this month about how the planting is going to go, especially with barley over in Europe. This is a traditional planting month, March and April, right in here. So we'll see how soggy it is, how dry it is. Because what's now the Czech Republic, referred as the Czech lands back in the 1600s, mega drought still down in production. So we'll see how it goes with Europe and Ukraine putting barley in the ground over this next month. Now, U.S. wheat production is projected 1% higher 2018-19. I personally just honestly do not know how they come up with this figure. The losses last year, the gargantuan losses due to late season planting and late season blizzards. And this year, they've even had more record snow, colder conditions. They don't even know what happened when it was minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit to the crops in the ground. To be seen. But at the tail end, they still tell you the lowest level since 1909 for winter plantings. Interesting. So you know for sure, even if it's high yields coming out of there, the lowest amount of acreage planted, the numbers just aren't adding up. But what is adding up is the snow totals, record snow across most of the wheat and agricultural zones out west in central Midwest Plain states. Kansas winter wheat doing very well amid a wet month. Cold and wet soil, not conducive for crop growth. And Gerhard, thanks for the heads up. One of my subscribers chiming in saying, hey, what's happening with the grains? They're not running as you had predicted. And I said they won't run until at the end of this year when the harvest season comes in, at the end of 2019 into 2020 and 2021. This is not investment advice. My own personal opinion is when we're going to see the greatest losses start to really come in. At the end of this season here, it's going to be very apparent that our global grain production is in distress. So if we take a look at freight on board Argentinian wheat, 12% protein content over a 1-year period. Do I see that correctly? 25% up in price. Now understand the forward month contract is down a little over 1%, but we're looking on the yearly. and we get that gargantuan 25% rise. And I thought, well, maybe FOB Russian 12.5% protein content might be different. It's a different part of the world. Maybe they're having better growth conditions over there. Up 20% over the year for the pricing. Yet looking at the forward month contract, just a little under 0.5%. Also, and I thought, all right, now the hard red winter wheat, FOB US Gulf, that's freight on board, 11%, up 10%. And it's not even milling wheat. It's not durum. It's not 14, 13, 12% milling wheat. It is something a little bit below that quality, and they're still getting a 10% rise. It's about to run big, in my personal opinion, but that's not investment advice. That's just my own opinion based on crop loss. It's going to be an inverse. The less crops we have, the higher prices. And for those of you that are out there trading, here's a little gift for you. Follow the months. It's just a chart, though. It's a month-on-month trading in metric tons, but you can see where the spikes are. Those are the highest prices are. And then what Natural Capital Coalition put out so succinctly, and I agree with this wholeheartedly here, is in the 1840s, the potato blight causing famine in Ireland, they were monocropping. When we look around our planet today with the wheat, we see the same thing. We're monocropping. Plants are going into conservation mode right now based on the electromagnetic changes from the sun. The yields are less, the kernels are smaller sized. Even looking at potatoes, since we're talking about this, they called it the potato apocalypse. Potatoes globally are 1/3 smaller. That's why your french fries are shorter. The plants are responding to the changes in our sun. UV output, how much sunlight really is striking the planet, total solar irradiance. We humans, we're the last ones to get on to the sun's changing enough to affect our global ecosystem. Nature is many, many steps ahead of us. So when I say this, you're going to need to grow your own food. And I don't care where you buy your seeds. You need to buy seeds this year and start practicing planting anything. These are some that I'm working with right now myself because they're the easiest ones to grow. It's the highest protein content, 20 different vegetables. I left a link below, so if you want to find something else to grow, russet potatoes, and there's a whole list there, eggplants and zucchinis and all types of other things, broccolis and cauliflower, but those are more difficult to grow. Leafy greens are really easy to get into the ground and get a crop out. And what I like about sweet potatoes, the potato itself can keep your body fully nourished with just a few other inputs, but at the same time it grows, you can trim the leaf and cook that as a fresh vegetable as well. There's just a list of high protein vegetables that are easy to grow. There's 20 of these in that link below, as well as all the links to everything today that you saw in this crop forecast, as well as links to trueleafmarket.com. This is my favorite heirloom and organic seed supplier. I trust them. If you trust me with my information, you want to go to True Leaf Market. Quality's top notch. Everything's wrapped to keep for years and years and years. So even if you buy it now, you can save on seed prices. And by the way, going through history and looking in antiquity, seeds were tradable items, along with tools, animals, etc. So think about that moving into the future. Our lives are going to be drastically changed. If you were to watch this same video series in 3 years from now, I really believe I'm going to be talking about global food shortages in this part of the world, where they're just not able to get it, or there's a total wipeout in some area of the world over there. But I do thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. I share this information with you because we're all in this together. I'm not running off planet. You aren't either. We all need to help each other. And the more informed you are, the better off we are as a community, and our species is better off. And you can find more posts and different types of writings on gab.ai/adapt2030. I'm also up on Minds with the Grand Solar Minimum Analysis and Timelines page, minds.com/adapt2030. And remember, long-term food storage, if you're into that as well, water filtration, etc. My Patriot Supply, visit our sponsor there, mypatriotsupply.com. Prepare with Adapt 2030, also linked in the description box below. And good luck in your preparations.